Warner Bros. Buried a Batgirl movie, a $90 million, nearly finished film with a signed green light, a cast already in costume and footage already in the editing suite. And the reason they killed it is something they never wanted you to know. $90 million, a completed production, and then nothing. No release, no streaming drop, no quiet digital window 2 years later. Just a press release about strategic priorities and a tax filing that made a finished film disappear from existence. You were never supposed to connect those two things, because here's what they wanted you to believe: the film just wasn't good enough. Test screenings went badly. It couldn't compete. That's the story that leaked to trade publications in August 2022. But the real reason Batgirl died has nothing to do with quality. It has everything to do with a contract clause, a merger, and an executive who looked at a finished superhero film and calculated that a tax write-off was worth more than a release. And that's not a theory. That's what the numbers show. The project didn't begin as a gamble. It began as a bet the studio was confident in. In early 2021, Warner Bros. Greenlit Batgirl as a flagship HBO Max original, a direct-to-streaming production, meaning a film built to live on a subscription platform rather than in theaters. Leslie Grace was cast as Barbara Gordon. Adil El Arbi and Bilal Fallah, the directors who had just turned Bad Boys for Life into a $206 million global hit, signed on to direct. J.K. Simmons returned as Commissioner Gordon. Brendan Fraser was cast as the villain Firefly, a casting decision that felt like a career moment for an actor the industry had just rediscovered. This was a priority title for a platform with hundreds of millions of subscribers, made by directors coming off one of the biggest action sequels of the decade. This was not a placeholder. Production launched in Glasgow in late 2021. By spring of 2022, principal photography had wrapped. The film was in post-production, editing, score, visual effects work underway. The directors were in the cutting room. The deal was signed. The money was spent. Batgirl existed not as a pitch, not as a treatment, but as a film with footage, with performances captured, with a completion date on the calendar. People who saw early cuts described it as a functional, entertaining superhero origin story. Not perfect, but done. A $90 million asset about to be delivered. Then on May 17, 2022, the merger closed. Discovery absorbed Warner Bros. In an $85 billion transaction, and David Zaslav became CEO of Warner Bros. Discovery. Within weeks, the entire DC strategy was dismantled and rebuilt. Zaslav wanted theatrical events, not streaming content, fewer films, bigger budgets, cinematic prestige. The HBO Max original film model that Batgirl was built inside was over. A direct-to-streaming Batgirl didn't fit the new DC, but that's still not the reason it couldn't survive. Remember that signed contract, the greenlit production, the cast already in costume in Glasgow? Here's where it actually died. Under U.S. tax law, a production company can write off the full cost of an abandoned project, but only if it never generates revenue. The moment a film releases, even quietly, even on a streaming platform with no marketing spend, it generates revenue. That triggers residual payments to every union member, participation obligations to producers, contractual costs that compound. It also signals that your streaming platform is where films go to disappear. Exactly the opposite of the prestige theatrical brand Zaslav was constructing. Warner Bros. Discovery's finance team ran the math. Releasing Batgirl would cost them more than the production budget, in obligations and strategic damage combined. But if they shelved it permanently and never let a single frame reach a screen, they could write off the entire $90 million as an abandoned asset against taxable income. They didn't kill Batgirl because it failed. They killed it because releasing it would have been more expensive than erasing it. The deal that made it real became the contract that made it invisible. The directors learned the film was canceled from a phone call they didn't see coming. Leslie Grace found out the same way you did, from the internet. What Warner Bros. Buried wasn't just a film. It was the first live-action Batgirl in the modern DC continuity. It was proof that a Latina lead could anchor a DC tentpole. It would have established Leslie Grace as a franchise cornerstone at a moment when DC needed new faces more than it needed familiar ones. It would have answered a question the industry had been quietly avoiding for years: whether a Barbara Gordon story could carry its own film. We will never know that answer. Not because the film failed to deliver it, because a spreadsheet decided the question wasn't worth asking. The contract that greenlit Batgirl still exists somewhere, in a filing cabinet, in a merger archive, buried inside the Discovery acquisition documents. The film itself lives on a hard drive that may never be unlocked. And that's the question Warner Bros. Discovery has never answered. If they did it once, openly, with $90 million and a named cast, how many other finished films are sitting on drives right now, waiting for the right tax year? Which studio is running that same math tonight?